Every single year, the cash sitting in your pocket is literally shrinking. If you're just hoarding it in a standard checking or savings account, you aren't actually saving. You're losing wealth. But hey, there is some really great news here. There's this perfect financial sweet spot right between those low reward bank accounts and the high risk roller coaster of the stock market. Welcome to this explainer on mastering money market funds. Today, we're skipping the basic fluff. We're going to look at exactly how these funds work, how you can navigate them effectively, and why finding this middle ground is absolutely crucial for your financial independence. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap we'll be following today. 1. The silent wealth killer. 2. Inside the institutional market. 3. MMFs versus traditional savings. 4. Compounding, taxes, and fees. And finally, 5. Myths and pro strategies. First up, Section 1, the silent wealth killer. Before we can even talk about growing your wealth, we absolutely have to address the elephant in the room regarding how most of us were taught to stash our cash. Keeping your money in a standard rainy day fund, well, it feels super safe, right? But I gotta ask you directly, is your savings account secretly losing you money? The short answer, yeah, absolutely. There's this invisible force constantly grinding away, and it's called inflation. It's literally the silent killer of wealth. Even if the actual number in your bank account doesn't change, the purchasing power of that money, like what it can actually buy you out in the real world, is shrinking every single year. And that brings us to this big, glaring number, 0. When you're earning a near 0% interest rate in a standard bank account, you are practically guaranteeing that your wealth is eroding over time. You're basically losing the race against inflation without even realizing you're on the track. This is exactly why finding that middle ground, a place that protects your purchasing power but doesn't expose you to massive risk, is absolutely essential.
Moving on to Section 2, inside the institutional market.
So, how do we actually fix this? Let's shift gears and look under the hood. And this brilliantly illustrates how money market funds elegantly solve this precise inflation problem. A lot of people think investing has to be this overwhelmingly complicated thing, but an MMF is wonderfully straightforward once you see the mechanics of it. When you join an MMF, you're stepping right into the institutional market. Basically, governments and massive banks constantly need short-term loans to run their daily operations, so they issue professional-grade stuff, like treasury bills or commercial paper. Normally, you'd need millions in capital to buy those, but step 2 totally changes the game. The fund manager acts as your bridge. They take your contribution, pull it with thousands of other investors, and buy those massive instruments on your behalf. They negotiate the big institutional rates, and then, in step 4, they distribute those profits right back to you. You're basically getting a slice of a massive pie that you could never bake on your own. Next up, Section 3, MMFs versus traditional savings. Now that we know how the engine works, we really need to definitively compare our options. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the incredible trade-off we're looking at. With regular savings, sure, you get instant access, but you're only seeing a measly 1 to 3% interest. You're just losing to inflation. Then look at a fixed deposit. It's much better, maybe 7 to 9%, but your money is totally locked away for months. If you have a sudden emergency, the bank is going to penalize you for touching your own money. But look at the bottom row. The money market fund sits beautifully right in the sweet spot. You're seeing historically high interest rates, often in the 10 to 15% range depending on the market, but your money stays perfectly fluid. You generally get 48-hour access without any massive penalties. It's literally the high interest of a fixed deposit combined with the accessibility of a savings account. Let's look at Section 4, compounding, taxes, and fees. Okay, so the interest rates are great, but the actual mechanics of how that money grows and the hidden costs you absolutely must watch out for are really what separate amateur savers from savvy wealth builders. One of the absolute coolest yet totally misunderstood features of a money market fund is daily compounding. Most of these funds don't just calculate your interest once a year, they calculate it every single day. If you deposit your money on a Monday, it starts earning on a Tuesday. At the end of the month, that interest is capitalized, meaning it just gets added straight into your total balance. So next month, you aren't just earning interest on your initial deposit, you are actually earning interest on the interest you just made last month. It's this beautiful snowball effect, and over time, it completely transforms modest monthly contributions into serious wealth. But let's be entirely real for a second. Nothing in finance is completely free, right? You absolutely must be aware of the difference between these two yields. When you watch the financial news, they almost always advertise the gross yield. That's the big, flashy number. But what you actually care about is the net yield. In most regions, the government is going to take a small cut of your interest through a withholding tax, and the fund manager takes a small management fee for doing all that heavy lifting we talked about. I highly advise you to always demand transparency here. Before you invest a dime, look your fund provider in the eye and ask, hey, what is the net yield after all the costs? Because at the end of the day, that is the actual money hitting your account. And finally, Section 5, Myths and Pro Strategies. It's time to clear up some common roadblocks that stop people from utilizing this amazing tool. There are two massive myths holding people back. First up, the idea that you need to be wealthy to participate. The reality? A lot of these funds allow you to start with the cost of a few lunches. It is incredibly accessible. The second myth is the fear of just losing it all. But the reality is that MMFs invest in highly regulated, historically safe assets. It's actually one of the safest places you can possibly park your cash. You're not betting on some volatile tech startup. You're lending to governments and major institutions. So, the crucial point is that MMFs are highly accessible and stable, totally busting the myth that you need to be rich or take huge risks to get involved. And because it's so safe and accessible, you can use this insider pro tip I like to call the MMF ladder strategy. Basically, don't just open one account, open three. Account 1 is your 6-month emergency fund. You literally never touch this unless it's an absolute crisis. But while it's sitting there, it's compounding daily. Account 2 is for your sinking funds. Think of those irregular expenses, like an annual car insurance premium or planned vacation. Instead of letting that cash sit in a 0% checking account all year, toss it in account 2. This way, your spending money is earning up to 12% interest right up until the exact day you actually need to pay that bill. And finally, account 3 is dedicated entirely to your long-term wealth goals. By segmenting your money like this, you're creating a seriously efficient financial system. I really want to leave you with this powerful thought. The difference between someone who struggles with money and someone who builds wealth isn't usually their salary, it's their systems. A money market fund is honestly one of the most powerful foundational systems you can build. So here is my challenge for you. Take the knowledge from this explainer and go research 3 different fund managers. Look at their historical performance, their net yields, and how fast you can withdraw your money. Because ultimately, you got to ask yourself, are you going to continue letting inflation quietly erode your hard-earned wealth? Or are you finally ready to build a system that makes your money work exactly as hard as you do? Drop a comment below saying I'm in if you're ready to start this journey. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will see you in our next explainer.